What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Most Valuable Podcast. I am Mark Williams with my colleague
Victor Castro.
and we're just two dudes who do real estate for a living. And you know what? Gen Z, you are not buying homes. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Gen Z. If you're unfamiliar with what Gen Z is, it's ages 18 to 25. You guys are not buying homes. And me and Victor are going to talk about that today and try to figure out why. And maybe we may have some ideas of why, just based on observations as two people that are not Gen Z. And we are part of millennials that are buying homes, actually buying the most homes, I believe. And I'll go over those stats shortly. But yeah, it's crazy, Victor.
It is. And hey, shout out to all my young clients out there too.
Yeah.
You guys are buying homes as opposed to.
Yeah, exactly. The Gen Zs that you helped and I help, hey, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, by a lot.
By a lot. So let me dive into this, Victor. Let me go into the statistics here. Let me pull it up. And I'm gonna go backwards. I'm gonna go from the oldest generation down to Gen Z.
Okay.
Right? Because I think that after Gen Z is what? Gen Alpha? That's what like our daughters are. I think that's up until 2025.
Before?
Yeah, like people, before is it? So there's a new generations, right? And generations aren't typically what people need to realize. It's not just 10-year increments. There's like, it has to do with, and I'm not an expert and correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, it's all about like, there's stuff that factors into it, like economy, world events, technology, and then, a length of time of like where this transition is, right? For myself, technically, year-wise, I actually fall like right on the cusp of like Gen X and millennial. So they call us like Zennials because I'm one of the few generations that was born in an analog society, cassette tapes, records. Like,
I remember those too.
We didn't have computers and stuff like that, right? But I was there like that was it. And then it started the full transition. Like both weren't available. Like I was born in 82. Like as a kid growing up, there was no such thing as like CDs. And that was all like when that came out, it was crazy,
like
bro.
The early 90s.
Yeah. And it's like, so technically there's that transition, right? So there's always like a transition period. There's no direct cutoff. So is what I'm getting at. So Gen Z, you might be technically Gen Z, but you might be more millennial than you think, just depending on how close you are to that transition. Yeah. But for the purpose of like statistics, they kind of have a cutoff date, right? Like this year, that year. That makes sense. What I'm getting at is you may be what do they say? You may be an old soul.
Yeah. Kind of like, hey, shout out to my sister.
Yeah, for sure. But let me go backwards. So this is called the silent generation, and that would be ages 79 to 99. Mm-hmm. So like grandparents, great-grandparents, right? I hope they'll be 99 one day. So 4% of the buyers in today's market is a silent gen. They're usually purchasing smaller homes. 27% of them bought in a senior-related housing. So 55 plus or senior living, something like that. Most likely to choose neighborhoods for healthcare access. So silent care, 79, silent gen, 79, 99, 4%. Baby boomers, this is ages 60 to 78. So kind of like our parents, right? They are 42% of the buyers. Almost half of the buyers right now in the market are baby boomers. They're moving for retirement, usually downsizing, or to be near family. They are the ones that are willing to move the furthest away. On average, 35 miles away from where they're originally at.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah. Expect to own their homes for 20 years, right? If you're buying at 60, average, I think the average life is like 78 or something like that for females and like 73 for guys. All right. Gen X. This is ages 45 to 59. 24% of the buyers. Highest medium income at $130K. They buy the largest homes and most likely to buy multi-generational homes, which I think we had spoke about before. So homes that have a in-law unit or something to have the folks live with them.
And these stats are nationwide, right?
Yeah, this is like an average. Yeah. Then millennials, ages 26 to 44, make up 29% of buyers. 71% of younger millennials are first-time buyers. Highest share of unmarried couples buying. So the whole stigma that you get married, then you buy a home is actually false. And I can speak for myself. I bought my home before. We actually bought the home first, then got married because the home was more important to us. And we can get into that.
Yeah.
But we went backwards. And they prioritize commute time. So commuting to their job is super important, like how long it takes. Which brings us to Gen Z, which is 18 to 25 years old. Just 3% of buyers and 2% of sellers. Lowest incomes, less likely to be married or have kids, prefer older homes. So the silent gen, 79 to 99, or I think that's what the age was, right? Are buying more homes than 18 to 25-year-olds. So Gen Z, you are not buying homes. Why?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. So what's some thoughts that come to mind, Victor, when you helped? I think you're helping right now some Gen Z clients that are buying homes.
Yep.
So why don't we talk about why are this particular couple buying a home?
They see the value of buying. They see, there's just when it comes down to it, their parents are homeowners. They went to college. They have good paying jobs, and they realize that renting is not going to take them anywhere as far as your control over your living situation, and they just want their own space. So for them, buying makes the absolute sense, and it's time to stop renting.
So them being that age range, so that means let's just say their parents had them in their 20s. So their parents are Gen X millennials, right?
Yeah.
Probably mid to late 40s, right? So
Could be.
Gen X could be, just assuming, right? Yeah. People had kids a little bit earlier, 20 years ago, right? So let's just say even if the parents are like in their 50s, right? 30 years older than them. Then that's the highest percentage of people buying homes. So it's like it correlated to them, to your clients that, hey, maybe it was their parents saying, hey, we wish we would have bought earlier. You should get it. But if you look at that, 18 to 25, let's just say average age of parents is 30, 35 years older. So the oldest would be in their 70s. It's still a high percentage of people buying homes. So obviously that message is selective on who it gets passed down to or who's listening to their folks.
And they're at least my clients are definitely listening.
Yeah. So why do you think a large percentage are not listening?
I don't know. Maybe they're just the rebels of the family. Maybe it could be different reasons. I think in defense of whoever is Gen Z, or this is what I've heard from them, is they're coming up in a time where, cost of living is obviously much higher than it was before them.
True.
Home prices are higher, rents are higher, and the amount of money that you're making nowadays is, it's not going up fast enough to catch up with the pace of cost of living. So in that aspect, we understand.
Yeah.
However, at the end of the day, if you're in a situation where you can ultimately get in and buy, there's people that are deciding not to, and they're being negative about it. And I think that's where the problem is.
Okay. Explain.
Well, if you can mathematically be approved to purchase a home, and I hear this all the time, I don't want to be house poor. I don't want to make that sacrifice and not have to, sacrifice my fun and vacationing and
Yeah.
partying and stuff like that. You know, and teach their own. We're not telling you to do it, but you know, people are just not willing to sacrifice at that age. They want to live and have their fun before they commit to something.
Which is not a bad thing. I mean, I didn't buy a house. Look, if you're 18 and buying a home, like, let me know. Hit us up in the comments. I want to shake your hand, right? Because at 18, that was the last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not expecting 18-year-olds to buy homes. I'm not expecting 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 maybe. Like, to your point, things are different, right? And it's proven. Like, the average age of people having kids is later, right? I know my parents had me when they were 25. So, you know, things were also cheaper in the 80s.
My mom
right?
was 25 too.
Yeah, they weren't homeowners. My parents didn't become homeowners until like their early, like mid 30s. I remember when they bought the first home, they rented for a long time. But that's also growing up in San Francisco, where cost of living has always been expensive. And then on top of that, you know, interest rates were a little bit different in the 80s too. They're like 16%. I know everyone cries about what they are now. They were like 16, 17, 18% back then. And although homes were cheaper, that interest rate is high. Like, even on, I remember the first home my parents bought, I think they bought it for like, it was like $250,000. It was like $280 or something. I ended up pulling it up because I remember the address. And they bought it for like $280. But you also got to remember the interest rate was like 13%. So that probably was like
more than twice as what it is right now.
Yeah. So you're thinking that's probably like maybe $2,500 payment, maybe a little bit more, plus property tax. Right. And they didn't have FHA loans back then. So they had to do conventional, and there wasn't mortgage insurance. And yeah, home insurance was probably cheaper. But you got to think about it. This is, you know, man, 30 plus years ago.
You're also making less.
They're making less.
Your wages are way less.
I remember, like, if your parents made like $100,000 back then, you were like upper middle class. Mm-hmm. Now you have to make $100,000. You're kind of lower middle. You're not even middle class. You might be in certain areas. You're poor, right? Yeah. Which is nuts. But
here in the Bay Area,
I saw some stat where it was like they were showing the counties how much you need to make. Like Santa Clara County is like 180 plus household income to be considered like livable. They just said livable. It wasn't like classes. And I mentioned this in one of the educational videos I did. There's no more classes, bro. There's no more upper class. There's no more middle class. There's no more lower class. There's haves and have-nots. Do you want to be someone that has, or do you want to be someone that does not? And you gotta like.
It's your perspective.
It's your perspective on things.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should clash yourself. You know, it's like, if you have a goal, that's your goal, right?
We speak about this all the time, Mark. But the victim mentality, like why even have that type of mentality instead of, you know, wanting to do better for yourself?
I mean, isn't that what this country is all about? I mean, there's people that come over here, like, you got to think about this. You know, I'm not going to get political, but we could dive into a little bit. You have all this, you know, we have a thing with immigration and stuff right now, right? Why do you think there's so many people that want to come to this country?
It's like
this terrible country. Right?
Yeah, if it was, yeah.
Where are they coming from?
If it was so terrible, why would they want to come?
Exactly. Yeah. And then the American dream used to be, you know, have a family, you know, wife, 2 kids, picket fence, a dog, a house, and a career, and then retire and live out your retirement, right? That was a typical American dream. I feel like that dream's changed. I feel like there's, as you get younger in the generations, I feel like part of this statistic, and look, like I said, I don't expect an 18-year-old to be buying a home. And if you do, hey, you're way ahead of the curve. And you're smart.
I know a few people that are thinking about buying that are at that age.
If I can give advice, if you're in a position to do so at a young age, do it. Looking back, like me and my buddies talk all the time when we moved out of the house, you know, for college. Even like when we went to college, some of us So I know some of my friends went to San Jose State and they all rented a place together. I went down south for a little bit. Well, when I came up to finish at San Francisco State, there was like 3 of us living together. If I look back, it's like we worked and went to school. 2 of my buddies didn't go to school. I was the one that went to college, but we all worked full-time jobs. We should have, instead of renting that place, we should have bought it.
And rented it out to someone else.
And then we could have lived there. And then when we all moved on, we could have either sold it and cashed out and everyone took that chunk of money to buy their own property, or B, created a little LLC and just rented it out.
Yeah.
And we would just get a steady income and the house would be paid off already. And in that neighborhood we were living in, that home probably would have cost us $400,000 or $500,000 back in 2002, 3, 4, whenever we were living in it. And looking back on it now, like that home today is probably like $1.5 million.
See, if we all had that mentality, Mark.
And we didn't though.
But if we did,
we didn't have the internet back then,
right?
We had MySpace was popping off. That was the jam in 20. I had a Motorola Sidekick. We didn't have so much access to information that Gen Z does now. So it's kind of frustrating when I see that number because I would like to see 10%. I'm not thinking they shouldn't be 40%. Those that are 40. The millennials and Gen X should be the highest, right? They're the ones that are in their careers, been in their careers 10
starting
plus
families.
Years, already started families. You got 2 incomes, right? 18-year-olds probably not married. They don't have 2 incomes, right? And even the millennials, that shows they're the highest of unmarried couples buying homes, meaning, boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, or real friends are realizing, hey, we need to get in now. Otherwise it's going to be too late. Right.
That's a great point. Why not buy with okay, you don't have a boyfriend, you don't have a girlfriend. You don't have to buy with someone that you're going to be married to for the rest of your life.
Siblings, best friends, people you trust,
family.
Get in.
Get in.
You mentioned this just a couple minutes ago. The price of housing is not going down anytime soon.
There's people out there, maybe Gen Z, that think it's going to crash too.
It will not.
It's not going to crash, guys.
I'm not Nostradamus here. And if you're listening to this, Gen Z, if you don't know who Nostradamus is, pull out your phone and Google it. You have access to information at your fingertips. Look at the housing prices in America over the last 50 years. They only go up. And when it does go down, it goes down off the number that was up already. So it's not going to revert back to what prices were in 1980. And maybe it goes 2 years back. You bought the house for $900,000. There's a dip. It drops down to $750,000. Still $750,000, and then it's going to go back up.
They're hoping for 2008 to happen over again.
It's not. It's not going to happen. 2008 is not going to happen because there are rules in place. Learn from your mistakes, right? Yeah. That's what you get taught. Learn from your mistakes. Lending and finance had mistakes. Now, can we see a slight dip? Yeah. I mean, it's economies. They're cyclic. They go in cycles, right? There's always ups and downs. There is no economy on this planet that just has a smooth increase year over year in any country. Always goes up and down. It's a circle. They usually say it's like a 10-year cycle, right? In America, on average, it's a 10-year cycle. Guess what? We're towards the end of that 10-year cycle right now. That's why we're seeing this dip. I'm going to throw it out there. It really has nothing to do with who's president. In my perspective of realizing, understanding of economies for the years I've been alive where I can understand it, I feel like, this is just my view, I feel like whoever's president just kind of gets the benefits of the economy hitting that cycle at that time. And then we go, oh, that's the great president because the economy was so good.
Oh, he did great.
Yeah. Where the ones where the economy goes bad, we blame it on that president.
Yeah.
And yes, there are things they can do to limit the impact and stuff like that. And sometimes policies accelerate the dip or accelerate the increase. But it's a cycle, bro. And I feel like it's like the luck of the draw, right? Yeah. So knowing that now, And knowing that we just went through
From experience.
Yeah, knowing, and I've been through the biggest recession, right? The Great Recession, and then we just had a dip in one with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? How is home prices working out in the pandemic? It's crazy. So that's that. This topic's for another podcast, but it's just one of those things. It's like you have the information. I also think about what's one of the biggest debts, which I think from my background in finance, my experience, I think the next great recession or whatever, or problem, financial problem, is student debt. And I think that's a big part of why the younger generation is not seeing the value in home buying, is because they're coming out of college just up to their ears in debt.
I'm going to bring up someone right now that is against college. Charlie Kirk.
Oh, yeah.
If you guys don't know who Charlie Kirk is, TikTok him, Instagram him, Google him.
He's like that
YouTube.
guy. He debates a lot.
He debates.
Right?
He goes to college campuses, and he's adamant that college is a scam. Hey, we're not saying college is a scam.
No, I got a college degree. I don't think I feel that my degree has, even though I'm not in a profession, I started off in a profession that kind of pertains to what I'm doing, but ultimately my degree is in something totally else. But the skill set I did learn in college, a lot of presentation. I ended up getting a degree in media. So talking in camera, doing podcasts, talking clearly, having a loud voice, being able to get my points across smoothly. It's all helped me in any job that I have. I also realized that college can be expensive, and I switched colleges because I didn't want to be
in debt.
When I left college, I was maybe $30,000 in college debt, and I was working full time through college, and I was able to offset some of the money that was needed by working, and I was able to pay off my student loans, rather quick. I haven't had student loans in 15 plus years, right? I paid it off probably within 10 years of graduating. And I worked in a college, and I worked for a private university for a little bit. And I actually quit, man. I quit because it made me realize that, yes, there are success stories, but colleges are businesses. You got to start looking at it like that.
And that's
they want your money.
That's his point.
Oh, is it?
That's his
I didn't
point.
even know.
That's his point. I mean, he's very clear about it. And there's a reason why it's hard for Gen Z to buy homes. And it's because a lot of them are drowned in student debt.
In tuition, they keep raising it, right? It's crazy.
And the thing is, you're getting a degree to make more money, but you're not making more money.
No, so if you go out of state, right? Yeah. If you go out of state, and we have some benefits here in California that we have a lot of colleges, states, and universities, and I think you get a discount for being a resident, right? Something like that. So when I went to SF State, it didn't cost me that much. I didn't live on campus, and I want to say per semester, because I was a resident, it was I think it was $4,000 a semester. Still $8,000, not including books, not including living, not including food, right? Those things were offset by me working 40 hours a week. I was broke, but hey, I toughed it out. I made it. I'm here. But now, I can only imagine that it's way more now than what it was when I went, even to just go to a local state college, right? So I've seen it. We help people. We've seen their finances. I've seen people with $150,000 worth of student debt. Mm-hmm. What costs $150K? What did you learn?
And it's still going up. That's the crazy part to think about, is college tuition continues going up.
But I'm trying to figure out other besides medical.
Yeah.
What cost $150K? What did you learn? Like,
what is your degree? What
take a step back. Gen Z, just hear me out here. And I'm not saying don't go to college. What I'm saying is, if you graduate today and you owe someone $150,000, looking back at your time in college, not the experience, not the friends you make, not the relationships, not the great memories and time. I'm talking about your professors. Do you think it was they taught you $150,000 worth of information? And I know in college, sometimes you got to take stupid classes like English. Like, we took English in high school. Why I got to take it again in college? You know? Yeah. Like, oh, you got to have your basic algebra or whatever. Look, speaking as someone that's 43 and has been in corporate and works for himself, you don't need to know algebra. You don't need to know
calculus.
You don't need to know none of that stuff unless it pertains to what you're doing.
Unless you're like an engineer and you constantly doing math to solve, equations to make sure that the building that you're in doesn't fall down. You don't need it, right?
So my thing is like looking at this number, it's like, man, maybe these kids are coming out just swamped in debt and just trying to get by. That's what I think contributes to the 2%.
Yeah.
Because I feel they're in a position where all these factors are going against them and they're not in a position to kind of set themselves up for like future success. So maybe they're just like, YOLO, I'm just going to spend all my money.
you know who I'm going to blame personally? This is just my thought too, this is just very personal. The education system. Because in high school, from what I remember, there's not enough classes to teach you anything about buying a home, how to build your credit.
100%, bro.
That is a contributing factor to why our younger generations are not successful in buying homes.
And I was in banking, and one of the big banks I worked for, we would offer our services to schools, churches, nonprofits, whatever, unbranded, meaning, yes, you knew what bank I worked at, but all the literature didn't have any of the company's logo, and we weren't allowed to say, hey, this is how we could help you. It was just to educate about credit, how credit scores are worked, how you use a credit card, how to balance your bank account, what a checking savings is. So we just literally gave financial education. And to be honest with you, it was a struggle. I would call principals because for my job, it was good. It was a resume builder. I'm trying to move up the corporate ladder. Look, I'm giving back to the community in which I run your largest branch in. And I would call high schools, because I think that's a good age, high school. And I would never get callbacks. They didn't want me to go there and educate them on how to manage a checking account. Shoot, I was like, man, I'll give it to your faculty then. I know how underpaid teachers are. Let me help them, give them some financial.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, dude. It's just crazy. But to your point, it's the financial education they're getting is on TikTok, Instagram. Oh, crypto. I'm going to be a millionaire on crypto. Such a volatile investment and long-term gains. And I'd rather spend all my money and rack up all this debt going to Cancun and posting it on Instagram and stuff. What you're not realizing is you're going to be 80 years old working at Walmart trying to make ends meet with no Social Security.
Yeah. It's going to be inexistent.
Because now I'm looking at this, now that we're talking, if only 2% of Gen Z is buying right now, why is there such a big jump from 25 to 26-year-olds? Because 26-year-olds are part of millennials, which jumped up to 27%. That's a 25% increase. I mean, that's a difference in 25%, but what is that? That's a
2-year.
Yeah, it's it's almost like a 12, 13% times increase, right?
So in a short amount
of time.
Maybe that's the maturing curve that they're using. Maybe,
but is the Gen Z curve going to continue? If we had this same podcast 5 years from now, is Gen Z still going to be the lowest population?
It'll now be 0.5%.
Is it going to go down? Would it go up more?
The way the trend is, it's getting smaller and smaller.
I think they got to change the narrative.
How do we exactly? That's a good point,
Right?
Mark. How do we change the narrative and get you to buy a home and not be part of that 2%? How do you get Gen Z to be...
No, be part of that 2%.
Well,
Increase that 2%.
Well, get it up. That's
Don't
my
be
point.
part of the 98%
Yes.
that's not doing it.
Yeah.
You know, it's your future.
How we get the 2% to 10%?
Because you think about it, man. If you bought a home, dude, if we can go back in time and you bought a home, whether you live in it forever or not, and you bought it in your early 20s, by the time you're 50, how much is that home going to be worth?
And it's probably maybe
And it's
paid
going
off.
to be paid off, right? For the most part, be paid off. Or throughout your growth, throughout your maturity into adulthood, getting into your first career, having a child, getting married, growing within your company, you have this asset that is proven to appreciate at a 3 to 5% rate year over year. And in some years, 19%, 20%, setting yourself up to have that capital to do what you want to do earlier in your adulthood than having the hope that you strike it rich buying Bitcoin or Haktua coin.
Yeah, right. and then you leverage that asset and maybe you buy more properties that also go up in value. And now you have this real estate portfolio that's going to help you retire
and you're
early.
Like 35 years old.
And you're
set.
You're set for life.
Chilling.
And your future generation, kids, whatever, are also
and
set
you're
for
still
life.
young enough to go to Cancun, post it on Instagram, travel the world, and guess what? When you're done traveling, you have no debt, and you go back to one of the homes you own, and then someone else is covering all your expenses because you got properties renting out.
Under an LLC.
Under an LLC.
Yourself.
Yeah. You know what, Gen Z?
We could talk to you about
Let's
that.
talk about this.
Yeah.
Hit us up. Hit us up. MVP Real Estate. You know where to find us. On IG, on YouTube. If you're listening to this podcast, you can pull us up. It'll be in the link. But yeah, man, I think they need to change the narrative.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it needs to be, from 2% buying to 20%, but there's a lot of smart Gen Z people out there. And
we don't underestimate you guys.
No, not at all. And not saying home ownership is the only way to wealth, but we're just speaking as like older generations trying to pass down some wisdom to you where we've missed opportunities to set ourselves up. This might be the opportunity to set yourself up because population is growing. Last time I looked, Earth's not getting bigger, right? Land in areas of demand is not growing. More and more building is
inexistent.
Yeah, but if you notice, like in popular areas where people want to live, the only thing they're building are rental, luxury apartments,
high
rises. They're not allowing you. These corporations aren't allowing future generations to have the opportunity to purchase homes. They're purchasing the homes, right? Get ahead of the curve.
Beat them to the punch.
Exactly.
That's what you have to do. You want to get ahead, you beat them to the punch, and you take ownership of your future.
All right. You know what, Victor? Let's end it on that. I'm going to say this. Gen Z, we look forward
to winning with you.